Uh, this is webinar about studying in Asia, and this picture is one of the few pictures in the webinar that I haven't taken myself, but I think it's from Japan. It should be Kyoto, Gion, the old neighborhoods there, very beautiful part of Japan. And this is a webinar by DreamStudiesAbroad.com. In this webinar, I will give you some more information about us, who Dream Studies are, who I am, and why we're good at studying in Asia, how we can help you with this. We will answer the question where you can study in Asia, what you can study in Asia. We'll talk about costs for studying in Asia and scholarships for doing so. We'll have a look at visas, student visas primarily. We will also look at student housing. And finally, how to study in Asia. And the image here is one that I have taken myself. It's from Seoul. It's a Korean barbecue, and it just shows off one of the many good reasons to study in Asia, because the food over there is fantastic and quite good value. So this is on a small side street in Seoul, sitting outside on upside down barrels or something, and just grilling your own meat by the table with lots of garlic and kimchi and other things. And in the end of this presentation, you will have the opportunity to ask us questions in the chat. If you have some question during the presentation, you can ask it as well if it relates to the slide we're talking about, but otherwise you can save them to the end and I will take all your questions then. So my name is JOHAN, as I mentioned. I'm from Sweden. And I've studied abroad in 5 different countries, primarily in the English-speaking world, the US and the UK. I also did short courses in Spain and in Germany, but also in Japan. And I worked in the study abroad industry for 20 years now, since 2002. And I have worked with schools in Asia since 2006 and helped thousands of students to study there. I started with Japan and China in 2006, and then in 2010 we started with Korea, and after that more and more countries have been added on. And I founded my current company, DreamStudies, back in 2016. So we're based in Stockholm, Sweden, but we help students with free information about studying abroad regardless of where you're from. And now we'll have a closer look at that. So why DreamStudiesAbroad.com? Here's just a screenshot of our website. Well, we give you free information about studying abroad. So at this website, you can find, I think, close to 100 articles about studying abroad, like article about study in Japan, about studying in Korea, about studying in Asia, how to get student visas to these countries, how to learn the languages, how to choose a school abroad, a checklist for studying abroad, and of course lots of material about scholarships and how to study abroad in general and in other countries. We have a school database with thousands of schools abroad. We have an FAQ section where you can ask your own questions, and we give a lot of webinars, we and our partners there, that you can attend to learn more about studying abroad. So a lot of free information available there. And our help is always risk-free. You never pay anything to us. So of course, when you study abroad, there's almost always a tuition fee, but that's something you pay to a school. If you choose to proceed with a school, you never pay anything to us. And we can help you to choose a school abroad. So if, for example, you make an info request on our website and you say, oh, Johan, I would like to study Japanese in Japan, or Korean in Korea, or business in Malaysia, or whatever you're interested in studying, we can suggest suitable schools for you. And often we can also help you with the application. There it will depend a little bit on what nationality you are, what school you want to go to. Sometimes, like in Korea, we help you with the entire application process for language courses in Korea, while on other programs, one of our partners might help you with the application. It might be the school directly, or it might be a third party there. We also have different scholarships and discounts that you get access to when you make an info request at Dream Studies. Many schools around the world want visibility on our websites, And then we ask them, okay, but what can you do for our students if you want us to, market your school? And that way we get a lot of different scholarships and discounts from schools. I'm going to go into some of those in this presentation. And we also have our own DreamStudies scholarships that you can apply for our partner schools. And we will tell you more about those too. So if you want more active help from us, then just fill in our information request form on the website and we will get back to you with more info. But if you want to arrange everything on your own, that's also fine. Then you can use the free resources at DreamStudiesAbroad.com and just plan your own studies abroad. So let's go. Where can I study abroad in Asia? Well, basically you can study abroad anywhere in Asia. I think, except, of course, you might not be able to get into North Korea to study there, and probably you wouldn't want to. But apart from North Korea and maybe some similar country, you can study abroad anywhere in Asia and almost anywhere in the world. Then, of course, we can't help you actively with quite every country, but we can help you with a lot of different destinations. One of the most popular places to study in Asia, my own favorite destination there, is Japan, as shown on the map. It's very popular to study there, and it's a great country to live in very many different ways. Korea is another very popular country, has become more and more popular in the last 5-10 years. And in many ways, Korea, they take one piece of Japan, one piece of China, and one piece of their own very strong independent cultures. It's also a very interesting country. Then you have China, of course, Taiwan, Indonesia, Bali, we have a partner there, Vietnam, Thailand, Malaysia, Singapore, India, and UAE. In all these destinations, we have either partner schools, or we can help you directly, or we have partners who can help you apply to schools there. So in all these countries, you can get more active help from us, and we often have information on them on our websites. So what can you study in Asia? This, by the way, is a picture from Korea. I think it's from the campus of Yongnam University, one of our partner schools in Daegu, the fourth largest city in Korea. So this is Yongsan, a little city outside of Daegu, but they have a really lovely campus. It's great if you want to study in Korea, but maybe want to be not in the biggest city, and maybe want a bit more peaceful experience than being in the middle of Seoul or something like that. And well, one of the most common programs in Korea is language courses, and there are many reasons for this. So I mean, the language is the key to really understanding the culture. So if you're into K-pop or J-pop, anime, manga, Korean drama, whatever is your interest in these countries, the language is really the key to understanding and appreciate the countries more, to get local friends and really get into the culture. And we can help you with Japanese language courses in Japan, Korean language courses in Korea, and Chinese, primarily Mandarin language courses in China, Taiwan, and Singapore. For the other countries, we don't have specific language courses or language schools, but it's often possible to study, for example, Thai and so forth in the universities in these countries. And yeah, as I mentioned, the languages are the key to understanding the culture over there. And when you take a language course in Asia, you choose yourself how long you want to study. So it's very flexible. You can do a minimum, usually 2 weeks, and the maximum is usually 80 weeks. And if you go to the universities in Korea, for example, or if you take a student visa course in Japan, then it's they give 4 semesters per year, and each semester is 10 weeks long. And in order to be able to be eligible for a student visa, you would need to take at least 2 semesters, 20 weeks. Yeah, there we have it, student visa to Japan and Korea. Of course, it's there 20 weeks or longer, and you will need a high school diploma. You don't really need good grades. They don't really care about your grades at all for language schools, because language schools are just there to teach foreigners Japanese or Korean language. The high school diploma is purely a requirement for the student visa, that to be eligible for a student visa in these countries, you need to have graduated from high school, but you don't need good grades, basically. And if you want to continue to study at the university in these countries in the local language, study in Chinese in China, in Korean in Korea, in Japanese in Japan, and so forth, you will need to take a quite long language course because the languages are complex here. So you'll probably need to go for 1 to 2 years. In Korea, it can be enough with 30 weeks. They say the national language test is called TOPIK in Korea, and you need at least TOPIK 3 level to be eligible for to go on to take a bachelor's degree in Korean in a Korean university. While if you want to study in a Japanese university, you might even need to study 2 years. The advantage when you study in Korea is that Hangul, the writing, the alphabet, is very easy to learn because it's a constructed language, very logical. While if you learn Chinese, for example, you need to learn thousands of kanji signs, very complex drawings there. In Japan, you have hiragana, katakana, two simpler writing languages. That's a good start and quite easy to learn. But then you also need some 2,000 kanjis to really, manage to read adult Japanese. But if you feel it's a bit daunting with all these languages, you can study in English instead. And for example, take 1 or 2 study abroad semesters in English. And here you have a picture of Konkuk University in Seoul, but you can do this in many different places. So you take courses in English, and either you can just choose freely, like take one psychology course, a dancing class, a programming class, and a marketing class, and kind of see what you like. Or if you're enrolled in a home university, you can of course take courses that matches your major at home, so you can get credits that you can use in your degree back home. And we can offer these kind of programs in Korea, China, Taiwan, Malaysia, Vietnam, Thailand, and Bali at the moment. And again, you must have graduated from high school because this is university programs, degree level courses. So that's a must here. And some universities only take students that are enrolled in a university in their home country. But others, we work, for example, with Hanyang in Ansan in Korea. They take gap year students as well, which means you can come right after high school without being enrolled in a home university. Then, of course, you can take a full degree in these countries as well. We can help you with that in Japan, Korea, Malaysia, Thailand, Singapore, China, and India. And then again, usually you study in English and you take a degree that's 3 or 4 years long. Korea and Japan, for example, have the American system with 4-year bachelors, while India, for example, have 3-year bachelor degrees. So it will depend on the country how long they are. And again, you must have graduated from high school, and here it's a bit more important to have good grades. Of course, it depends where you go. It's not so hard for an international student to get admitted to a university over there if you have decent grades. But of course, if you go for like the top universities, more Vasadas or Yonsei's, whatever you have, then that would be possible. At the moment, Konkuk University don't take gap year students, at least not through us. In Korea, it is Hanyang University's Ansan campus who do it, but that might change in the future. In answer to the question in the chat there. And of course, it is also possible to study in the native languages. So for example, in Konkuk University, they don't offer degree programs in English. So you would have to take your degree in Korean language there. And then you would need to start with a language course. As I mentioned, for Korea, that would be topic 3, at least 30 weeks Korean course beforehand. So what majors can you take for a degree in English in Asia? Mostly they do liberal arts programs, especially in East Asia. Like almost all universities have some programs in English, but they're almost afraid to have some of the courses there. So they all go for these liberal arts, the international business or global business or international economics, something like that. Political science, very common. International relations, interdisciplinary arts could be quite common. It's really this kind of subjects, Asia studies or Japan studies if you're in Japan, maybe Korea studies in Korea, so forth. That's very common. Language programs, of course, are common. But then we also work with, for example, Kyoto University of Advanced Science and a number of universities in Malaysia who offer engineering programs, really good ones. So in Kyoto, for example, you can study mechatronics and robotics. That's where the picture are from. And of course, the perfect location to study those kind of subjects in Japan. And you can also study subjects like IT, design, and other things. And there, at least from the schools we are in touch with, Malaysia has the most programs in English, and India also, I would say, while the more East Asian universities tend to go more the liberal arts path, unless it's more niche university like Kyoto University of Advanced Science. And let me see, there we have another cost. Do we need to be enrolled in a university also for the language courses, especially in Korea? No, language courses are totally independent. So you never need to be enrolled in a university in your home country to take a language course abroad. Those are given in Korea. Language courses are usually given by universities, but it's kind of a language school on the university campus. In Japan, for example, other countries, it's usually private language schools, but there you can go right after high school, no enrollment needed. So let's have a look at some costs. Tuition fees for language courses, and now of course they always charge right in their local currency, so this might change with the currency. But usually a language course would be $4,000 to $7,000 a year for 40 weeks. And that would be like 3,600 to 6,300 euro approximately. If you look at Japan, I would say a 40 weeks language course usually about 800,000 yen, sometimes 700 something, sometimes 840. And in Korea would depend a little bit, but might be like 7,300,000 Korean won, for example, for a one-year course in Konkuk University, which is a Seoul university. While if you go down, for example, to Yongnam in Daegu, there it's only 5,200,000. Sounds a lot, but it's just because the currencies are so small, not worth so much. Let me see, we got another question. I'm not sure if this is your area, but if I wanted to study a language course in Korea, if I got my language certificate, would I be able to possibly get a job eventually? Well, to get a job in Korea, the big challenge would be to get a work visa. We're going to look a bit more about visas. There are something for certain nationalities can get working holiday visas. You can work there for a year, but otherwise you would need to get a job and a work visa. And to do that, I know in Japan, you would need to have a bachelor's degree or a semongaku degree, which is kind of vocational college degree, to be able to work in Japan. And I would guess Korea is quite similar. They usually put a lot of emphasis on education. So probably you would need a degree to work there, but you can work part-time as a student. On language courses in Japan, for example, you can work 28 hours a week if you have a student visa. In Korea, you can work at least 20 hours a week from your third semester after you've studied for 20 weeks and with your school's permission. And then the rules are kind of similar in the different countries there. So it's possible to work part-time while you study, but then otherwise it's more the visa is always the trick, right? If you want to stay in a country. Study abroad semesters start from about $2,200 per semester, about 2,000 euros. So that can be quite cheap in many Asian countries, and also living costs are cheap. So often actually to study in Asia is quite affordable. Degrees usually cost a bit more, start from like $3,500, 3,200 euro per semester. But on the other hand, on the degree programs, you have much bigger chance of getting a scholarship. Scholarships are rare for language courses and study abroad because language courses, as I mentioned, are often given by private schools and they live on your tuition fees. And it's shorter courses, and same with study abroad. That's a short course. You come for a semester or two, so the school don't have so much incentive to give you a scholarship. But if you're a good student and you come for a full degree program, then you have a good chance of getting scholarships in Korea and Japan. But usually these will be partial scholarship. They reduce the tuition fee. They don't, pay everything, with some exceptions. We will come to them on the next slide, I think. Here are some minimum amounts. To get a student visa in Korea, for example, you would need to have at least 10,000 US dollar. You need to show this on your application, like a bank statement, to be able to get the visa documents from the school. And in Japan, that would usually be around $16,000. Most schools would demand 2 million yen there, but it would depend from school to school. And this is for 1 year, and then it's supposed to cover like your living costs and your tuition fees there. That's the minimums. And then we can look at our scholarships to begin with, Dream Studies scholarships. If you go to one of our partner schools, make an info request on Dream Studies Abroad, you can also apply for our scholarships. And one of them is a language course scholarship for €1,000. So if you want to study in Konkuk University in Korea, or you want to study at LTL Mandarin School in China, or you want to study in for example, Kyoshin Language Academy in Japan, you can apply for this scholarship, €1,000 per year. We also have an Asia scholarship, which is also €1,000 per year. Of course, we hand these scholarships out to one student per year, so it's not guaranteed by any means that you will get them. But on the other hand, we usually don't get that many applicants, so you have a decent chance. We also have a degree scholarship for €2,000 per year. And I don't mention here, but we also have a study abroad scholarship, but just that it's not applicable to all the programs there, but you could get it, for example, to study at Asia Pacific University in Malaysia. And the application deadline for our scholarships is December 15 for courses starting next year. We also have a guaranteed discount of €40 on all Asia Exchanges study abroad programs in Asia with the discount code DreamStudies. So maybe not so much, but still, why not save €40 and do something more fun for it? So if you apply with them, put DreamStudies there. And then we have some scholarships from our schools in Asia, especially in Japan. We have a language school called Waseda BK, Waseda Bunkakan, so it's not Waseda University. This is a private language school that is based close to Akihabara, but they offer a very generous scholarship to our students. It's 50% of the tuition fee on their 1-year language courses. So this would probably be the cheapest language course you can find in Japan, because Japanese language schools tend to have very similar fees. It's available for European nationals, for American students, also from students from, I think, Australia, New Zealand, and so forth. The exact details are on our website there. Yamanashi Gakuin University are located by Mount Fuji. So it's great if you want to see more like rural countryside, beautiful nature part of Japan. And they offer liberal arts programs in English. There's international business, interdisciplinary arts, political science, or Japan studies, and they have tuition fee scholarships of 25 to 100% of the tuition fee. Kyoto University of Advanced Science, I also mentioned before, they offer 30 to 100% tuition fee scholarships, and even have a possible stipend for personal expenses if you would have a really excellent academic performance. That would mean both top grades before coming there and maintaining them at the school. But it should be quite easy at these schools to at least get a partial scholarship, which is, of course, a good thing. Konkuk University in Seoul, I already mentioned a lot. If you take a language course with our help there, and then go on to take a degree in Korean language, you will get a scholarship based on your topic score. So if you reach topic 3, you will automatically get a 30% scholarship on the first semester. If you achieve topic 4, you get 40%, and so forth. And from semester 2, you will get a performance-based scholarship based on your academic performance, which could be from 20 to 100% of the tuition fee. And we also have a lot of other smaller discounts and scholarships, particularly from language schools in Japan, and you can find them all at DreamStudiesAbroad.com. And then let's have a look at different visas. Many of these countries offer visa waiver programs where you basically don't need a visa at all. So, for example, many nationalities can go under ordinary circumstances, at least, to Japan and to Korea and stay for 90 days. And I think even many of the other countries, Thailand and so forth, have some kind of visa of arrival where you can come for at least 30 days or so. So basically you could take a shorter course on these programs. Now in Korea, I should mention, they have started with something called K-ITA, which is a pre-registration. It's very simple, but just say, oh, I want to go to Korea, I arrive on this flight, and pay some small money and give a few details where you're going to stay or something, and then you can come and just get the 90 days in your passport. But it's not, of course, available for all nationalities. This webinar is open for everyone, right? But visa rules always depend on your nationality. So if you're European or American, for example, Australian, usually you can get these visa waivers, but some other nationalities might get shorter period of time or might need to apply for a visa. China, almost everyone need to apply for visas in ordinary cases. And in Japan, for example, you can't go there on visa waiver during COVID. But then there are student visas, which is what you usually get if you take a longer course in Asia. And usually the minimum requirement is that you study for 20 weeks, so at least one university semester, 20 weeks for language courses. And then you apply to the school, often pay the school at least a deposit, and then they will send you the visa documents that you need to apply for the visa at the embassy, Japanese embassy, Korean embassy, so forth in your home country. So what you should think about here is that especially if you study in Japan, this is kind of time-consuming process. They need a lot of documents. It's usually quite easy to get the visas, but you need to start to apply like half a year before your course starts. Korea is a bit quicker and the other countries differ a lot. Let me see, we got another question here. I'm not sure if, no, that was the old question, sorry. But then we come to that, the working holiday visas. Selected nationalities can also get a one-year working holiday visa to Japan and Korea. And this basically means that you can go to the country for 1 year, you're allowed to work there, but you're also allowed to study. So if you for some reason can't get student visa or don't want to get a student visa, working holiday visa can be an alternative. It's usually for students between the age of 18 and 30, and you have to check first whether your country is on the list of countries that have working holiday agreements with these countries. Another way is also if you have, for example, Korean ethnicity, if one of your parents, something like that, are from Korea, then they have special, I think it's called the F visas in Korea that you can get, which is the best visa. And then, of course, luckily we're kind of coming out of COVID in Sweden, where I live. They dropped all restrictions. Korea almost made the same. Korea has been open almost all the pandemic for international students on student visa, but they have also reopened for working holiday visas and for visa waiver with the pre-registration. They have dropped the vaccination passes for restaurants and stuff, but if you're not vaccinated, you will need to do a 7-day quarantine in Korea. If you are vaccinated, you can do another pre-registration and you don't have to do quarantine anymore, but you will need a PCR test. Japan still have a short quarantine and they will ask for PCR tests, and the test most countries will ask for those. And China is literally closed right now. It's especially for international students. If you're a Chinese citizen, yeah, you could go there, but there will be basically months in quarantine. Well, yeah, as I mentioned, the other countries require PCR tests, sometimes some shorter quarantine, but not so much more. So it's quite possible to go to Asia now to study. They have, apart from China, they have opened up basically. Student accommodation, another picture I took. There's usually you book the accommodation through the school you want to study at. And there are many different options. You can live in the school's residence. So basically, same thing as if you go to a US university, halls of residence, usually double rooms you share with another student. in the dorms on campus. What you should be aware of in Korea, for example, and I think other Asian countries as well, is that they do have a curfew at night. So if you want to go out party in Seoul, for example, and you live in the student residence, you either have to be home before 1 o'clock when they lock, or stay out party all night and come home after 5 when they open the residence again. So if you want to be more independent, maybe you should look at a share house instead. We can help you with that. Basically, you share an apartment with other students. Often you have your own room, or you have a double room shared with another student, and then you share like kitchen, bathroom, living room stuff. How long is the duration of the student visa? Student visa will usually be valid as long as you study. So if you take a 1-year course, you'll get a 1-year student visa, half-year course, half-year student visa. Sometimes though, there's a maximum limit, so they can't be abused. I think usually they're valid for at most 1 year at a time. And sometimes you have to renew them every half year, but then basically you get half a year or 1 year to begin with, and then when you are in school, if you want to continue your studies, they give you visa documents and you go to immigrations in the country and just prolong the visa. If I recommend share houses, it depends who you are. If you want to live on campus and don't want to party late at night, then residence is fine. Otherwise, share house can be good. In share house, you can often live with the Korean students as well, and students from all over the world. So it is a good option. Another option is host family. If you really want to get into the culture, learn the language, then host family can be a good option as well. This is available from certain schools in Japan, Korea, and China primarily. In Japan, we can actually help you with host families all over the country because we work with an independent host family company there. And then we have something called Goshivon, my favorite, which is what you see on the picture. And this is a very Korean phenomenon. So as you see, I'm in the mirror there, and not my room though. But this is taken with a fisheye lens. So it's basically like a 4 square meter room with a tiny toilet, a tiny desk, and a tiny bed where you hang your clothes about, put your suitcase at the foot, and have nothing else, no windows, no nothing. So it's a very small cabin, a bit claustrophobic, but the reason students still choose it, this one, for example, is in Gangnam. You can live very cheaply, very centrally downtown in Seoul, for example, in this kind of Goshivon. So that's also an option. And they have usually a shared kitchen, bigger bathrooms out in the corridors. So that's an option. And the accommodation can be booked either through your school. They usually have residences. Private language schools also have shared apartments, host families. You can find accommodation on your own. This is something you would need to do if you, for example, want to bring a pet, because pets are not allowed in this kind of shared accommodations. Or you can do it through our partners. We have 2 websites called yourhomeinkorea.com and yourhomeinjapan.com. And at yourhomeinkorea.com, you can book share houses in Seoul, and Your Home in Japan, you can book share houses in both Tokyo area and Kansai area down by Osaka, Kyoto in Japan. There you can also book host families and private apartments. So check out those websites if you're interested in arranging accommodation on your own. So who can get help from DreamStudies? Well, anyone can get help with our free articles and resources about studying in Asia on the website. And we can help you with the application to selected schools and partners. But we can't help you to apply to schools we don't work with. So if you want to study at Seoul National University, you can get our general information, but we can't help you apply there. We can't help you to apply to a visa program or a university program if you don't have a high school diploma, since this is a requirement. We can't help you if you don't have the required funding, which I showed before would be at least $10,000 in Korea and many other countries. And in Korea, it also depends on your nationality, since our agreement, we're based in Europe, right? So then they tell us, oh, you can help schools or students from Europe or the Americans or maybe Australia. Many countries we can help you to Korea. but we're not allowed, for example, to help Asian students to study at our partner schools in Korea. And don't ask me why, it's the school's rules, so that's just the way it is. But a lot of free information is available for everyone, and we can also help you apply, or our partners can help you apply to a lot of schools in Asia. And also to mention, we can also help you like in the US, UK, Australia, within EU, so schools around the world. And there's usually fewer restrictions, but yeah, you almost always need to have the funding to, of course, to pay for your courses, to get the student visas, and to study at universities. Normally you would need a high school diploma. So how to study abroad and how to study in Asia? Well, a good start can be to fill out an info request form at DreamStudiesAbroad.com. Then we can help you to find the suitable schools and send you more information about the country you want to study in and so forth. And we can also then send you application info. And after that, you fill out the application, get your acceptance letter, and pay for your course eventually. Book your accommodation, often through the school or on your own. You apply for a visa. Actually, this should be moved up. Usually, as soon as you paid for your course, or a deposit for the course at least, you will get visa documents from the school. Except in Japan, there this is a very long process. You will get your COE, certificate of eligibility, about 1.5 months before the course starts. Then you go to the embassy in your home country and apply. And then you should book a trip, and don't forget to book a study abroad insurance as well. We have good recommendations about that on our website, because it's vital if you study abroad that you're covered not only for healthcare, but maybe for theft, liability, all the kind of things that can happen. And then you pack your bags and go to Asia. So this is my main presentation. So to get more help, you fill out the info request form, and we help you to choose and apply to schools abroad. You will get our study abroad handbook. I don't know if I talked about that, but it's a handbook basically describing in more detail, step by step, how to study abroad. And we also have specific files about how to study in Japan, how to study in Korea, etc. that we send. And you will get access to our scholarships that I talked about. So now it's your turn. Do you have any questions about studying in Asia? If you do, please write them in the chat. Here we got something. I'm not positive if I want to travel, because I know that if I want to come back, then this degree won't help me. But do you know some advantages of studying abroad for the language course in Korea to help me make my decision? I don't know about that. In general, I would say a degree that you take abroad is basically worth as much as a degree you take in your home country. Then, of course, it's up to the employer to judge. But for example, if you take a Bachelor of Business, something like that in Asia, shouldn't be any problem to get a business job in your home country, and especially if it's a company that has dealings with Asia, where it's get more tricky to go home to your own country. Maybe if you study law, medicine, something that very country specific, then it might be better to study it in the country where you want to live and work. And when it comes to language courses, it's a lot, of course, about cultural experience, but also languages look good on your CV. And again, if you learn Korean, for example, and you work with a company that somehow have dealings with Korea, then both your cultural experience and language experience will be invaluable. I mean, there are many advantages about studying abroad. But then, of course, a language course is also a smaller investment. You can go for, 10 weeks, 20 weeks, 40 weeks. You don't need to take the full degree there. We have also articles on DreamStudiesAbroad.com about reasons to study abroad. Let me see. Also, for share houses, are they usually separated by gender? I think they have both kinds, but yeah, in Asia, I would say it's more common with the gender separation than it is in Europe, at least. So school residents are often separated, like, oh, this is the women's building and this is the guys' building. And share houses, I would say they're also often divided, but not all of them. I think there you can have basically come with a request whether you want to be in a mixed one or whether you want to be in a gender separated one. So I could study I could study the Korean language for a year and then start the actual college course. Yeah, that's quite possible. When you can go to Korea, for example, for a gap year, take 1 year of Korean and then go home for college, or after 1 year of Korean, you will actually know enough Korean, if you're a good student anyway, to study at a Korean university in Korean, or of course to apply to one of the programs in English in Korea. So that's quite possible. I would say actually, if you want to study a longer period of time in any of these Asian countries, I would learn the language first almost, because then it's so much easier to get local friends, to enjoy life over there. They're not very good at English. I mean, they speak some English, better in some countries, worse in some, but learning the language at least a bit is a very good thing. Then some of the schools, like I mentioned, Yamanashi Gakuin, for example, I think even Queen Kyoto University of Advanced Science, give their degree students Japanese course in parallel with the degree studies. But of course, that's so much slower than going to a language school and learning it full out. What GPA do you recommend to have for a good chance to get into most of those universities? That's almost impossible to answer, because there's so many different universities and each program would have a different GPA requirement, and often I'm not involved in the acceptance to the actual degree programs. When you apply directly through us, it's usually what's called the language courses. Otherwise, the degree programs will be through our partner or through the schools directly, and there it also depends on how many applicants there are. But as I mentioned, if you don't go for the really high ranking schools, you should have a pretty good chance with decent degrees. But if you were to go for the kind of Yonsei, Waseda, those kind of Korea university, then of course you would need a higher GPA, especially if you go for popular competitive subjects also. Do you know the tuition fee of Seoul National University for language courses? No, we don't work with Seoul National University, so I don't know what tuition fee they have. I would say it will not be so different from something what Konkuk have, for example. Then usually what you should be aware of that some of those Korean universities are better than others when it comes to the language courses. I have previously worked with some of the most high-ranking universities in Korea for language courses, and we don't do that anymore because students weren't really happy. The language courses there can be very, very academic focused, basically spend 20 weeks to do grammar and read and write, just prepare you for university. But normally if you study a language in another country, you want to speak, do the more practical language usage. And there we found that Konkuk, for example, Yongnam University, and those offer a very good balance there. Do you recommend Konkuk University language course? Yes, we do. I worked with them for a number of years now, and actually last week did an interview with a student there, and she was very happy with everything there. So we found Konkuk is a very good school for this. They're still a high-ranking university. They have their own underground station, centrally located in Seoul, and they have a very good balance in their language courses between, grammar, writing, and talking, speaking, listening. So you really learn practical language usage as well. And they also have many international students, which is good. You don't want to be in also a too small kind of university, or even some big universities have still quite few students on their language programs. And then maybe there's like 90% of them come from one of the Asian countries, and then there's a few Westerners and everyone else speak their own language. So it's usually good to go to a school like Konkuk where they have a lot of international students and can have very mixed classes, so there's not one group that gets too dominant. And if you want more help, you're very welcome to fill out the info request form at DreamStudiesAbroad.com. So last chance, if there are no more questions, I will close this webinar now. And thank you for coming. So kamsahamnida, domo arigatou gozaimasu, xie. I would really need a language course myself. Thank you.
Do you dream of studying abroad, but you're not sure how and where to go? That's why we're here, Dream Studies Abroad, to help you